and welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. Normally in my cards, I keep things pretty simple. Today we're going to do things a little bit different. We're talking about layers. So I have made cards with lots and lots of layers. Now, if you like to keep your cards simple, that's great. Throughout here, I have all kinds of tips and tricks mixed in. We're working it with vellum. We're working with word dyes and layers and blending and all kinds of fun things. Ribbon, different ways to use ribbons. So I hope you'll stick around and watch whether you like all the layers and all the things or a little bit less. There's definitely some things that you can get from this video. At the end today, we're going to talk about some natural home remedies we use around the Helman house that I would love to share with you. The bundle I'm using for today's cards is called Delightful Wishes. Has lots of really nice things included in it. It's a really big die set. Beautiful papers. You're going to see these on all of these cards. And then we have some really adorable embellishments we will be adding as well. And that is what we are going to start with actually. I'm going to bring in some ribbon and we're going to use some pretty ribbon on this card. But first, let's talk about this greeting. So like I said, we're doing lots of layers. And if you want all the measurements for these cards, I would love to share them with you. I am going to link to them. The video description below, there's always a link where you can go to my website and find photos of today's projects as well as more information. And I will include all of the measurements in that today. So find that link, go to my website, get all the measurements. But you can see here, I have 3 different layers on top. I have designer paper. I have a lighter colored designer paper behind that. It may just look white to you. And then a layer of green designer paper on top of the card base. To give some more fun layering, I have used this really pretty die that comes in this set to cut out this detail on the 2 corners. Now, to do another fun version of layering, what I have done is I cut out this die right here from the front, and I wanted to put the greeting behind it. So just to create, instead of always popping things up, you can actually cut openings and then layer things behind. So I have worked on the greeting already. We're going to attach this to the back of the flap so it will open like this, and then we still have the inside as well. Gives a pretty inside here because this is the back of that designer paper that I'm using. But what I did to create this is I used the extra piece from when I cut out the word wishing for one of my cards. I saved this piece. I needed a wider gap at the edge so that my blending brushes didn't color outside of that cut. So I just added a couple of white strips just for that reason. I could have used a larger piece of cardstock to start with and wouldn't have had to do that. So I laid this on here. I used my blending brushes to blend. And now what I want to do is bring in this stamp that says wishing. When we're talking about layering today, these word die sets that coordinate, we have stamps and dies that coordinate, really give a lot of options for how to use them. I can layer the dies on top of each other because there are 2 dies. I can also layer the stamps on top of the dies. Now, we'll see if I get this lined up since it's hard to see with my camera here. Looks like I did. Look how neat that looks. I'll hold it up closer so you can get a better view. But I just love that with the shadow behind it and then the dark words in the middle. Now let's go ahead and attach this to the back of the card front, and then we will finish the front off. So I am going to put just a little bit of adhesive each of these spots, and then here. Line it up where I think I want it to be. And I want to fold this over, but not actually press it down yet, just to make sure. And I think that looks pretty good. So now I'll go ahead and press it down, and it is going to pick that up and adhere it. So now we can see that pretty print on the back side of the designer paper here. We have our layering with the greeting back behind. And we are going to add some ribbon behind the die cuts here. I mentioned this die set. There's lots of fun things, all the different pieces to make quite a few different flower die sets or flower die cuts. So I'll show you this. This is something I really like to do. I have just put several pieces of my tape on there, and I love to just wind ribbon back and forth. So this is going to add another layer, another element to our card. If you ever feel like your die cut or whatever you're putting on top, if you ever feel like it blends in to the surroundings and you want it to stand out a little bit, or you just need a little bit more decoration, a little bit of ribbon like this can really help. So we'll trim this off. And go ahead and attach these. I'll grab my take your pick tool. This is a tool, I share this quite a bit, but I had the spatula tip out. I can flip this around, and this is the tip I wanted, my piercing tip. This is great to put those dimensionals on to your card projects, and also you can remove the paper backing pieces this way and put that on. And didn't this turn out nice? I really like that. Like I said, a lot of times I keep my cards really simple, but thought it would be fun to show you a lot of layers. Now, while I'm thinking about it, let's look at my trimmer, because I know measurements and cutting can be a struggle sometimes with card making. So I wanted to mention, I had put my lines on my trimmer several years ago, and I designed this and all the colors and where the lines are to make it easy to cut cut mats for my cards. So I'm going to put a link in the video description below to a video where you can watch all about this, because it makes it easy. Now, something else you can do, I have also shared some videos on how to make cards without any measurements. I'm going to link to some videos there as well. So if you really struggle with measurements, you can look those up as well. But for something like this, you could cut all 3 squares the same size, the green, the white, and the yellow. You could cut all 3 of them the same size, and then you could take the white one and cut just a little bit off of both sides. And you could take the yellow one and cut a little bit more off both sides. We don't have to be exact with our card measurements. We don't even have to use measurements in a lot of cases. So just wanted to mention that, because when we're looking at all these layers, you may think, oh, wow, that is a lot of measuring, and it can be, depending on how you want to do it. But I wanted to mention that just to make things a little bit simpler. Again, I will have all of these measurements on my website if you want to look at it. But on this one, I really like a lot of times to leave really narrow borders. So what I do to get this narrow border is I cut 1/8 of an inch off of both sides compared to the larger size. So my card measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's the measurement after it's folded. So then I take 1/8 off. So the white piece would measure 4 1/8 by 5 3/4. And then take 1/8 off of that, and you'll get the measurement for this beautiful yellow floral print. Okay, then I made these other rectangles here. I know this may seem like a lot when I am trying to make cards with layers. You know how I come up with my sizes and my shapes? I just start cutting. I just start putting things on there. And I don't always have a vision for where I'm going. There's no rhyme or reason. Just start putting pieces in different shapes. You'll see we're going to make 4 cards here, 4 total. This is our second one. And you will see there's just all different sizes and shapes. And hopefully these can give you some ideas of designs if you struggle with your designs. Now, this piece right here is a piece of vellum. Can you see through it? I love to use vellum on my card projects. It is absolutely beautiful. This is another thing you can do if you ever feel like whatever you're putting as the focal point on your card doesn't stand out enough from the background. Add a little bit of vellum behind it. It's perfect, and it makes it stand out just a little bit. So we're going to talk about a few tips for adhering vellum, because it's frustrating when you can see your adhesive through it, isn't it? So on this one, I just used my Seal tape runner. This is Seal Plus. It's stronger. I do love my Seal Plus, but for this, a lot of times I use my regular Seal. If you're adhering to lighter a light colored background, you're not going to see that adhesive through here. If we are adhering to a dark colored background, we're going to use a different tip here in a second to do that. I have already created this beautiful die cut with the dies in the set, and there are lots of ways to adhere detailed die cuts. We have a fine tip glue pen that is fantastic. A lot of times I use this one right here. This is my multi-purpose glue. I love it because it's nice and sticky. So if I put this in place and leave it here for, I don't know, 10 seconds probably, it will have actually, I can tell it already has already stuck enough that I don't have to hold it there. So over the next 30 seconds or a minute, it will finish drying, but it is sticky enough. I don't have to worry about it now at this point. So I want to put this nice die cut. This is the one I cut out from the front of our first card here. So of course we'll find another purpose for it. So I want to put this on here, but let's talk about another way to use some ribbon. And I know that right here is going to be covered up by this die cut. So I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive there, and let's wrap some ribbon around here. More layers, more layers. Just stick that into that adhesive. I want to wrap this around a couple of times, being careful not to let it twist. And when I get back around to the front, we'll just do 2. Stick that back in that adhesive, and we'll trim that off. Okay, so we have that nice ribbon trim. We'll put this over top, and then we have a couple of options for our tag. So here, I didn't show you this on the other one, but you can actually lift up the dimensionals off of the sheet with this handy tool. Again, it's called the Take Your Pick tool. It is great if you have a hard time with your hands, with your fingers, working with small pieces. So we'll put this on, and then as you can see, I stamped right on there. It says wishing you well. Isn't that cute? And then, but I thought, okay, we're talking about layers. Come on, let's step it up a little. Let's cut a little piece and we can pop up the words you well if we want to. So we'll go ahead and do that. And here we have 2 of our cards done. We will move on to the third one. And as we're starting on this one, I want to mention celebration that is going on right now. The embossing folder that I have used for the card base on this card, let's show it to you up close. I love this embossing folder. It is called Starstruck, the Starstruck embossing folder. And right now we have a promotion going on called Celebration. If there's anything you want to order, with every $60 you spend, you will get to choose a free item. We have some really awesome options. This fruit paper pack, this was one of my recent tutorials. These are upside down. This is one of the options. We have some really adorable stamp sets, beautiful papers, this floral paper in the stamp set. All of the supplies I used on all of these were from some of those options. So lots of fun things to take a look at. You can use the link below to go and take a look, see if there's anything you are interested in ordering. Now, this background is a little bit darker. We have another piece of vellum here. This background's a little bit darker, and if I use the seal adhesive on here, it will probably show through. Now, I'm adding more layers. So by the time I get done, would you be able to see that adhesive through? Probably not if I keep it in this area, but I want to show you a fun trick that is really helpful. This is a fantastic way to attach detailed die cuts and vellum. So we'll go ahead and share it while we're here, and hopefully it will help you on a future project. This is my silicone craft mat, And I'm going to put some of that same glue, my multi-purpose glue, onto it. And I have a piece of sponge that I only use for adhesive, for glue. And I am just going to go around and blot a thin layer of this all over. If I get any very thick, I can use more of a swirling motion to kind of spread it out, smooth it a little bit. Now I see a little piece of lint or some kind of fuzz. Who knows where it came from, but it may show through, so I want to get rid of that. And now, wherever I want to adhere this, just give that a good press. And like I said, because that glue is so sticky, I'm not going to have to hold it there long. And that adheres it really nicely. You don't see any tape lines through it. Glue dots are another way I like to adhere vellum, but you have to hide the glue dots behind, whatever is going to be on top. This is a great way. You're not going to see any of those lines. So we got that layer on. Now we're going to put some vellum on the vellum. We're going to put another layer of vellum over top. This one I am going to use because I'm putting light on light. The tape should not show through. So we'll put this piece over top. And so that's funny, that did show through. When I did this a little bit ago, I didn't see those tape lines, so you could use that same trick with the glue here, or you can find a fun way to cover up those tape lines. So I was going to put this on anyway. We'll put this on down here, and then let's decide what we want to do with the flowers. See, can you see that tape line? We'll bring it up closer. Here's one and here's one. And these are things that, gosh, to a person who doesn't make cards, if you send this to them, they probably wouldn't even notice that. But we can cover that up here in a second. There's always a way to fix the things on your cards that don't turn out exactly how we want to the first time. So we'll add that. And here, see the layers with the die cuts. I love how this set is designed. So we have the narrow word wishing on top of the shadow. So here's a flower, and we can put it wherever we want to. I think we'll add it in, and then I have a couple of other embellishments I haven't shown you yet. We will use those and add just a few. So let's put this here, or wherever it ends up. Okay, these are some adorable honeybee embellishments. Tiny bee trinkets, they're called. That's cute. Tiny bee trinkets. When I attach things like this, a lot of times I like to use glue dots. I don't have to wait for glue to dry at all. I don't end up with glue all over me, These are actually smaller than the glue dots. So I wanted to show you another handy trick here. And basically I just fold the glue dot in half. If you ever attach bows with twine and the glue dot is too big for that, this is a great way to do it. Stick it on there, and then these are really easy to pull off and put where you want them. Here's another handy use for the take your pick. And we must have a lot of fuzz today. I see some more lint. Over here is where I'm wanting to distract a little bit from with that tape line. So let's put 2 of these over here, and you never even know it's back there. So here is our third card. Lots of fun. I love these bright colors. I don't use yellow very much in my card making, but every time I do use it, I'm completely in love. So I keep telling myself I need to use yellow more. Here's the base of our 4th card. You can see I left that really narrow border at the top and the bottom, and then I added this strip here. Here we have another piece of vellum, and we are going to do that thing I do sometimes in my card making. We are going to crumple this up. I know it's terrible and horrific. It's making a lot of noise. This vellum is a little bit pokey on my hands. It's a little bit stiffer than the paper would be. And as I'm doing this, I'm wondering, like, what is vellum made out of? Is it just a thin paper? It seems like it's made out of something different, but I don't really know. You should tell me in the comments because you all are smarter than me, I know. Okay, now let's smooth this out a little bit. We have that fun texture. Love to add texture to my card projects. Now for this one, we could use that glue technique. If we want the texture sticking up, we need to use something that's not going to adhere it completely down. So this is going to end up on top. So here's a great way to attach your vellum pieces is to just hide your glue behind. And we will find out whether it shows on this one or not. So I'll go in the middle here and a little bit lower and a little bit higher, and all of that should be hidden, I believe. I really like to leave loose pieces that look like they're loose. They're not, of course. And this one, I could put adhesive all over that and it's not showing through. So that's great. Now let's look at this. I want to stamp. I use those two-step stamps to stamp the lighter color on the flowers and then the darker color on the flowers. And I added the leaves in. Now let's stamp the greeting. I really like that the set comes with the word wishing and then several different options as far as what to fill in the end with. So we have wishing. We are going to finish this with the one that says, you were here. And of course, I could have layered this. I could have popped this up. I could have die cut it. I could have done all the things. But I decided, you want to see a little handy trick? I haven't used this stamp yet. So what I do sometimes, if the ink doesn't adhere to your stamp, I can tell down on this end, it's going to be blotchy. See, it didn't stamp quite as well right there. What I do is I ink it, I stamp, and then I move it back and I press pretty hard and move it back and forth. That's going to take the film off of the stamp from the manufacturing process. Now, when I ink it up, it is going to work much better. Got a perfect stamp here, wishing you were here. So let's attach this to the other layer. Here's another handy tip for layers. Is use glue instead of tape, because when you place it on that bigger layer, do you ever get it not quite where you wanted it? Oh, friend, it happens to all of us. So what you can do with the glue is you have another chance to put it where you want it, and you can move it around a little bit, and that's just perfect. Gives you a few seconds to move it before it is dry. Let's pop this up. It's going to give an extra fun element to our layered cards here. And I have a few more of those bee embellishments ready, so I think we need to add a few of them. As you can see, there's just no rhyme or reason to how big I made these pieces, to where I'm putting them. Especially for those who are newer at making cards, just remember there's no rules to this. It doesn't have to look a certain way. You don't have to cut certain sizes. Just start playing around with it and you can come up with some really neat things. Where should the other bee go? Let's go right there. So let's take a look at this up close. We'll bring the other four back in. Here you can see the cute little bees. Here was the last one we made. So hopefully this gives you some ideas and some fun tips and tricks that you can use on your projects. Don't forget about Celebration. With every $60 you spend, you can choose a free item. And we also have a starter kit special right now where you can either choose $155 in products of your choice for just $99, or you can choose $125 worth of products plus 2 marker sets and a stamp set, and that's like $216 worth of products, I think, for just $99. So really great specials. I got links in the video description below to take a look at that. Let's talk about some home remedies. I have not taken medicine in over 2 years. The closest thing is Vicks Vapor Rub that I have used. But most of the things I'm using when I don't feel well at this point are completely natural. I want to share a few home remedies that we use around here. I just broke this one out the other day for Farmer Matt. He gets headaches that I believe are probably just about always from his back being out of alignment. So a lot of times he'll go to the chiropractor and then he's good for a while. He hasn't been there for a long time. His had a headache the other day and he's like, I know it's from my back. I said, I'm going to get out some of that peppermint oil. We had tried this once before and it helped him. It always helps me when I have a headache. So he's like, I know it's my back. I know it's my back. Well, we got out the peppermint oil and his headache went away anyway. So I use this when I have a headache. I rub it behind my ears. Sometimes on my temples. You have to be aware with the peppermint oil. I think it has fumes. I don't know. Sometimes it'll burn my eyes just for a second and then it's fine. So there's the warning about that. But I rub it behind my ears and on my neck, sometimes on my temples, and massage it. And what I find a lot of times is I'm sore back here. When I have a headache, I'm sore back here. I'm like, I asked the chiropractor about it one day. He says a lot of times it's a tension headache and that's normal. Massage it a little bit, use some of this. Pretty much always takes my headache away. What else do we have here? We have all kinds of strange things in the Helman household. Black powder. What is this? It's activated charcoal. So what do we use this for? We use it. I started using it first for stomach bugs. So any kind of stomach bug it works for. And I know the first time I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, what if we die? I don't know how to do this. It looks like it's going to hurt me. It's bad. It's like ground up, volcanic rock or something. It is porous. It has little teeny tiny holes in it and it absorbs bad things out of your body because of the charges of bad things in our bodies. So I'm also using it right now to detox from heavy metals. You can pull things like that out of your body. After I had my amalgam fillings removed, the ones that release mercury into your body, I got sick and it took me like a week of having the worst sinus infection ever to realize this has to have to do with having those fillings removed. There's probably mercury floating around in me, making my body really angry. Started taking my activated charcoal. I got better. So good for heavy metal detox, good for stomach bugs. We take half a teaspoon probably mixed in some water several times, 3 times a day. I don't know if you have a stomach bug. I'm not a doctor. I don't give medical advice, but this is what we do. That's my activated charcoal. Iodine. I've talked about iodine. This right here has healed people of thyroid problems, breast cysts, cancer, prostate, ovary problems. I said thyroid, brain fog, all the things. This is a natural detoxifier of bromines, chlorine, fluoride. Let's have a flashback to chemistry class. Oh my gosh, nobody wants to do that, but we're going to anyway. So iodine on the periodic table of elements is with those things I just mentioned: chlorine, bromine, fluorine, all the things. Our bodies start to collect those things in our iodine receptors, even though we desperately need iodine, and a lot of our food doesn't have much iodine in it. So our bodies collect those things because they're like, oh, that looks like iodine, and then it clogs up our iodine receptors. Our bodies can't use the iodine, even if we're getting iodine in our food, which a lot of us aren't. Anyway, natural detox. There's a book called The Iodine Crisis. If you're going to start taking this, be aware there's other steps you have to do, like take natural salt to help flush everything out. And anyway, but other things you can use it for, wounds, infections, all kinds of things. Our dog one day, I wish I had taken a picture before. I found her one day, her eye was swollen shut, she had a big gash. It looked like she had a tumor on her face. Was it the iodine that healed her, or was it the fact that I sat down and I prayed with her? I'm not sure. But no lie, that day I thought she was, I wasn't going to be surprised if she died, was how I felt about it. I look at her that evening. You're going to be like, you know, why weren't you babysitting her? I don't know. Who knows what I had going on that day? I don't know. That evening, you could not tell. She looked totally normal. There was like a little tiny pink mark where she'd had a cut, and I was like, wow, I need to use this more often. Maybe it was the praying. I have no idea. Okay, iodine's great. Honey. Honey, buy local honey. That I've had this bottle. I've been reusing it forever. We buy local honey, even though this was not local honey. Honey is good for everything. Probably not everything, but it's great for a cough. Sometimes when somebody is coughing, just take a spoonful of honey. We use it for that. It's supposed to be good for wounds, cuts, infections. I have read from a doctor that I trust that it heals cavities. I have healed cavities naturally using a tooth powder I make. If you look up Mommypotamus tooth powder, spelled like hippopotamus with mommy at the beginning. Mommypotamus is the website. Tooth powder is, that's where I got my recipe, but it's got activated charcoal, bentonite clay. Bentonite clay is another thing that does 1.5 million things. Baking soda, cinnamon cloves. It's got all these good things. I have healed cavities naturally with that. I read that honey heals cavities as well. What else? Honey is good for like skin problems. I have started making some of my own skin cream. My daughter had eczema, and anyway, I started making some of these things just to try to avoid buying stuff at the store that has weird ingredients in it. We don't know what all that stuff is. I've started making some things out of tallow. Do you know what tallow is? Prepare to be weirded out if you don't. It is beef fat, and look it up on the internet. It is all the rage. The makeup of the structure of beef fat is supposed to be like amazing, like perfect for what our skin needs. So people making face creams and lotions and sunscreens and all these things out of it. But honey is fantastic for your skin as well. I've made a couple of things that we're currently testing out in our personal care routine from some of this stuff, but we are just trying to clean up the things that we have in our home, the things that we put in our bodies, and I thought I would share a few natural things that have helped us. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you have a blessed day. I hope you'll be back again next time when I will be here helping you to hand with love.